The Western Cape Community Safety Department expressing concern over the number of gender-based violence-related cases that are being thrown out of court as a result of dockets that go missing. MEC Reagen Allen saying that 198 court cases were withdrawn because of this issue. Well, he joins us now. This is the Community Safety MEC. Mr. Allen, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's a very concerning story. What do we know about why these dockets go missing?
Kathy, thank you so much for having me. I do know that in terms of the initiative that was taken by the Western Cape government to initiate this particular program in terms of the court watching briefs, where we monitor court cases to ensure that justice is ultimately served. Because we know that the courts play a vital role in punishing offenders and giving them their required sentences. However, the onus is obviously on the South African Police Service and particularly the detectives to fully and efficiently investigate matters presented to a court of law so that perpetrators can be held to account. For the period of 1 April to end of June 2022, we have then monitored 198 cases, and many of those cases were then withdrawn. For example, in terms of cases that were withdrawn due to dockets not being in court. So it's missing from the court, it's not there, it should have been there, it's then struck off the court roll. It also leads to secondary victimization, where a person, a victim or survivor would then have to go back to court and again until it is struck off the court roll. Because what we look at, Kathy, is the failure or the inefficiencies within the detective services of the investigating officer to finalize investigations, to also have the police docket at court and not somewhere else, but also the forensic reports that are not timelessly available to a court. But also when an investigating officer fails to subpoena a witness to attend a court hearing, for example. And in terms of the gender-based stats for that particular quarter, there were 25 cases, Kathy, that were withdrawn because the docket were not at court. It wasn't taken to court, and that was 25. And then there was also cases that were withdrawn because the investigation was incomplete. Also because the accused was not brought to court. So we have seen for the criminal justice system to work, we need SAPS, we need the NPA, we also need the courts to efficiently work so that there's no secondary victimization.
I just want to put a bit of context to the data that you've been able to gather. So out of, you monitored in total how many cases?
We monitored 198 cases, and then there was almost 40 cases that were directly linked to gender-based violence.
All right, and of those 40 cases that were linked to gender-based violence, how many of them then had to be thrown out of court or were dismissed because of missing dockets?
There was 25 cases that were withdrawn because the dockets were not brought to court, so it wasn't at court. There was also then 8 cases that was withdrawn because the investigation was incomplete. When a matter is postponed and postponed again until it is struck off the court roll, there was also 2 additional cases that were withdrawn because the accused was not brought to court, and that ultimately leads to justice not being.
So by and large then, across the board, what we are seeing is a general failure in as far as the collection of evidence or, what is needed to successfully prosecute criminal cases more broadly is the issue that is being faced here.
Yes, Kathy. Also, that in terms of our oversight role and that particular mandate in terms of the Constitution, we've seen that in terms of the policing needs and priorities here in the Western Cape, which showed that our detectives are sitting with a caseload of 250 dockets on average. Today, I was in Parow, which is an area within the city of Cape Town, and there was 2 detectives at Parow SAPS that ultimately had 400 dockets to deal with. So one can imagine that if a detective is having to deal with so many dockets, then so many dockets are then not landing up at court, so the investigations are incomplete. And then the courts will strike it off the court roll. What we then do is that we engage the South African Police Service, ensure that those cases are on the so that justice can be served, and so that females, and especially
All right. Unfortunately, it looks like we're losing that connection there to the Western Cape Safe Community Safety MEC, and that is Reagen Allen. And a big issue that his department is raising there about court cases having to be withdrawn because dockets go missing. So certainly a lot for the Western Cape Police then to be able to answer about what is driving this particular issue.